Do you hear it? Do you feel the awkwardness? This week has not been a quiet week. Not when you have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. There's nothing quiet about the house. Some of you have had family invade. And I do mean invade. That's not a derogatory term. It's you just had no place to go in your house. And if you're an introvert like I am, that's a scary place to be. But just listen. Breathe. This is not something we do very often. Silence is so difficult. But yet, the truth is, when we're silent, we hear things we would have never heard as we embrace silence. The scary part about silence is what happens before or after that causes the silence. Some of us remember earlier in November, it was really quiet, and then you heard blaring sirens, or you didn't, depends on what part of the city you were in. And the scariest part was the silence. The unknown. What happened? For some people, the sound of sirens was a daily occurrence. It's something that they knew when it happened, they were prepared for it. When the sirens went off, they knew to pick up their stuff and run. Run to the nearest shelter. Run with all your might. Don't stop. And there was silence. The next thing young Toshiko knew was somebody prying the bag off of her. As she looked to her right, where there was once hope and joy, there was death. You see, the bomb shelter she'd run to with her sisters was now a place of loneliness and silence, because she was the only one who survived. Silence. You see, the hardest part about silence is we don't embrace it because it scares us half to death. But for some of us, God's silence has been deafening. The silence in our relationships has caused great pain. The silence of an empty home where there was once joy and activity hurts. Silence for the people of Israel, their lives have been anything but silent. You see, it had gone from war to king to good king to bad king to war to some more war to more death. There was hardly ever silence. And God would raise up these prophets to speak to the people, to tell them what he wanted them to hear. Now, the truth is there's two kinds of prophecy. There's foretelling, which is what we're most used to hearing about, is when God says this is going to happen, this will occur. And then there's the forthtelling, which is right directly speaking to us where we are at. And amazingly enough, the prophet Isaiah does both. Isaiah grows up in a very awkward time. There have been some really good kings, and then there have been some terrible kings. And after the death of one of the great kings, Isaiah receives a call to prophesy to the people. Now, I got to tell you, back in this day, whenever you had to give a word from the Lord, it was not typically a good thing. It's not something that people came each week to hear, because it was either blessing or cursing, right? And nobody wants to hear cursing, and so they were very leery when they were like, hey, the prophet has a word from the Lord, and they're like, oh, no. And so Isaiah begins to speak from the Lord, and he gives this message. And the people have been under assault from Assyria. They've been dealing with this for decades. Enemy after enemy continues to assault them. Sometimes we call that Monday. Because let's be honest, ain't nobody want to go back tomorrow. And he begins to speak to him, and this is Isaiah chapter 8. Verse 19, someone may say to you, let's ask the mediums and those who consult the spirits of the dead. With their whisperings and mutterings, they will tell us what to do. But shouldn't people ask God for guidance? Shouldn't the living seek guidance from the dead? Look to God's instructions and teachings, and people who contradict his word are completely in the dark. They will go from one place to another, weary and hungry. And because they are hungry, they will rage and curse their king and their God. They will look up to heaven and down at the earth. But wherever they look, there will be trouble and anguish and despair. They will be thrown out into the darkness. Darkness is a tough place, because oftentimes there is nothing scarier than darkness and silence. Have you ever walked around at night? Sometimes I run at night, and I'm running along the trail, nice little happy, and then I hear a twig break. Amazingly enough, I move a little faster. Then you hear a little rustling, and you're like, Lord, I know that is just a squirrel, but what if it is not? And I run a little faster. Why? Because that's what we do. Because darkness and silence are really scary together. For the people of Israel, these problems were clouding their presence so terribly. It was literally so dark they could not see what was happening. Can you imagine that? A darkness. And Isaiah is tasked with speaking into this darkness, and he brings a word from the Lord, and he says this, nevertheless, that time of darkness and despair will not go on forever. The land of Zebulun and Naphtali will be humbled, but there will be a time in the future when Galilee of the Gentiles, which lies among the road that runs between the Jordan and the sea, will be filled with glory, and the people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in a land of deep darkness, a light will shine. You will enlarge the nation of Israel, and its people will rejoice, and they will rejoice before you as a people rejoice at the harvest, and like warriors dividing the plunder. For you will break the yoke of their slavery and lift the heavy burden from their shoulders, and you will break the oppressor's rod, just as you did when you destroyed the army of Midian. The boots of the warrior and the uniforms blood-stained by war will be burned. They will be fuel for the fire, for a child is born to us, a son is given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end, and he will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord of heaven's armies will make this happen. And you're like, and? Isaiah, that doesn't change anything right now. That doesn't change the struggle we're in. One day. How many of y'all ever had that conversation? One day we're going to live in this house. One day I'm going to have this job. One day I'm going to drive this car. One day, and I sound like a 5-year-old trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life. But the problem is it doesn't stop at 5. one day my marriage is going to be better. One day I'm going to reconcile with my family. One day there will be a light in the darkness. One day. But what we forget is God promised. See, God's promise was illuminating this passion in Isaiah. Do you think this is a message he really wants to give to the people? Yes, because it's filled with such hope, such promise. He can't keep it in. He's got to tell them, there's light coming. I know it doesn't seem that great right now, but it's coming because one day this child will be born and everything will be perfect. You know why? Because God promised. But what happens when we don't feel like God's promises are there? What happens when it just still continues to go on and work stinks and home is hard and friendships are non-existent because you're a parent now? And who has time for friends when you have kids? Let's just be perfectly honest. And then your job gets more demanding. Oh, yes. And it's the holidays. And everybody gets really good at faking around the holidays. I know some of you actually like it, but then there's the other 98% of us that secretly hate it. Not just because, well, we're going to spend more money than we want to spend. Not just because it's freezing cold outside or hot or whatever, it's Arkansas. But because it brings up things that we don't want to remember. And the darkness seems to get darker. Because we've developed these places of brokenness that have never been healed, and it's hard. And this is what Isaiah had to say about brokenness. It says, out of the stump of David's family will grow a shoot. Now, we have plenty of stumps right now. I don't know if you guys have noticed around the city of Rogers, there's just a couple of down trees, a couple of stumps that haven't been ground yet. Out of those stumps, the places of death, destruction, no more. Isaiah says there's going to grow this shoot. New life. You know what we tend to do? We tend to chop it down again. Why? Because that's not what I wanted. That's not how it works. You know why? Because our brokenness can become our memorial. It can become this place where we keep going back to and we're like, you know what? This was the perfect place. This is where I live in the darkness, in the brokenness. This is where I live. You know, I kind of feel like Dora the Explorer today. Got my backpack on because I need to show you guys something, okay? Now, back in my day, I always want to be able to say that at 35, you know. This was a big deal. For those of you that are over the age of 30, these are called football cards. We used to do lots of things to get sports cards. In fact, I got this for Christmas one year, and I was so excited. You know why? Bo Jackson is in this thing. Whew! Bo Jackson. You know who Bo Jackson is? Everybody over the age of 40, that's right. Why? Because Bo Jackson was the best thing in football and baseball. Because Bo knows sports. What's amazing about the memories that are held in this thing is a lot of people don't know Bo Jackson because he hurt his hip. And what started off as an illustrious career ended in nothingness. But I still got the glory days right here. So I Googled this last night because I wanted to see how much it was worth. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Somebody was selling this for less than the shipping cost. Do you know how many people's careers are in here? And he wanted $6.95 with $9.95 worth of shipping. All for my memories. Yeah, those seem pretty worthless now. You know, one day somebody would have paid a lot of money for this. Not anymore. Thank you, Internet. And then there's memories that are harder, right? So this was my book from my First Step Study and Celebrate Recovery. This takes me back to a place I don't want to remember, because it takes me back to a guy I don't ever want to be again. And I don't know why I keep this book. Because the truth is, it's not done. Our group disbanded and I never finished it. Taking an honest and spiritual inventory. I promise I did do that in a separate notebook, just not in here, because I didn't want anybody to find it. Hence, why I keep it hidden. Because even though I'm proud I've got past it, sometimes I struggle to let go of it. And then I close up my backpack. And put it right back on. Because I really struggle that God is going to bring a new shoot out of my stump. Isaiah 11, out of the stump of David's family will grow a shoot, yes, a new branch bearing fruit from the old root. And the Spirit of the Lord will rest upon him, and the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. And sometimes I just don't feel like I'm there. But the good news is this isn't about me. He will delight in obeying the Lord. He will not judge by appearance, nor make a decision based upon hearsay. He will give justice to the poor and make fair decisions for the exploited. The earth will shake at the force of his word, and one breath from his mouth will destroy the wicked. He will wear righteousness like a belt and truth like an undergarment. In that day, the wolf and the lamb will lie together. The leopard will lie down with the baby goat. And the beauty of what God promises is there. But it doesn't come out of any place but brokenness. But that newness begins to provide direction that we didn't have before. See, the one thing about a tree is you can't really control its growth. It's just going to happen. You can snip it off, you can prune it, you can do whatever you want, but it will grow if you take care of it. See, because the prophecy that Isaiah made here is about Jesus. That one day this child would be born and bring salvation to the whole world. That he would do these amazing things that no one could touch. Because he is Emmanuel, God with us. He's the light in the darkness. He's the new shoot that brings life. And even though God has always fulfilled his promises, he's always acted on behalf of his people, recognize that God has been at work preparing for every single moment. From the moment Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, this plan was beginning to be prepared. You can prepare all day long, but we've got to accept where it comes from. See, preparation comes out of knowing what God has called us to do. And the truth is, God has called us and has a purpose for us and has created you for such a moment as everyone you take breath. Why is there darkness? Why is there brokenness? Because if there's no darkness, you'll never see his light. If there's no brokenness, you'll never experience new life. See, this is actually, please don't think I'm too weird. Too late. All right, good. This is actually my prepper backpack. In case there's a tornado or natural disaster, yes, this does go in the bathroom with us. Amanda wanted to know if something was going on because I had my prepper backpack out. So yes, I am like Dora the Explorer, okay? Draw that correlation now. Because there's certain things that like you can never actually prepare for, but you got to have stuff for just in case. That's how it works. Like this, guys. Solar power. I can charge my cell phone. I don't know what good it will do me when the cell phone towers are down and like the apocalypse is taking place, but I am going to have power. Not sure why, but I will. Let's see what else. Ooh, there's some really good things. By the way, my dad got some of this stuff for me. This is not just me buying this. People buy this stuff for me. Don't get any ideas. Now, this next thing you guys are going to think is a little weird. That's fine. Obviously, you never had to change a diaper. But, oh, man. Oh, got to get all my other stuff out of the way here. Oh, yes. You know it. A gas mask. You have children. I'm not sure why you don't have one. If you have teenagers, especially boys, I'm really not sure why you don't have one. We've smelt them. We know. But you know what the unique thing about being prepared for this stuff is? Sometimes we prepare like it's never going to get any better. Some of you literally wear a gas mask all the time because you have so many toxic people and relationships around you that it's like you're fake. And God is trying to shine a light in your darkness. He's trying to bring newness, but you'd rather keep on the mask and wonder why people don't know who you really are and let the toxic stuff stay. Just a gas mask, guys. The question is, do we really believe that God fulfills his promises? Do we really believe that God does act on behalf of his people? Do we really believe that Jesus came down to earth, lived, died, rose again, and is coming back? Do we really believe that? Because the truth is, I have never seen Jesus. I have heard his voice. But what if it has been silent? And it's just like nothing is there. Do you really believe that God will still come through when your problems are so many that it seems like nothing is going to get better, and you'd rather wear a mask than deal with the issues? You see, when we talk about a vibrant life in Jesus Christ, we use the word vibrant because I'm tired of being like most Christians. Dull, fake, hypocritical, don't know who Jesus is, don't really pray except at meal times, don't really get anything out of relationship with other people or get anything out of church, don't really want to grow, but hey, if I got to have like insurance for heaven, cha-ching, I'm in. But Jesus did not come for insurance. Jesus came to give you a life that shines through the darkness, that heals the brokenness and brings something new. That's a vibrant life. The question is, will you accept it? And I know, like, we got the little ABC method, and everybody's like, that's so simple. If it is so simple, then why don't we do it? Because to have a vibrant life, all you need to do is admit that I need God. Admit that I need God to be the Lord of this thing. I mean, let's be honest. This or fresh air, which one? But too often we're so worried about everything else that we never see his promises. We never see how real he can be. B, believe in Jesus Christ. Believe that he lived. That's what this season is all about. It's that anticipation of his coming. Oh, just presents and, Visa bills. It's all about celebrating the fact that he came, that he lived, that he died, that he rose again, and is coming back. Believe in that. It's not just enough to be like, I believe in Jesus. Okay, remember, Jesus said that the demons believe in him. I'm not calling some of you demons, but I'm saying your faith is about that level. Confess my need for his forgiveness for the things I've done wrong. By the way, this is on the back of your notes if you got them. Confess. Confess. Guess what? In case you need to know, I'm messed up. I'm not perfect. Not even going to pretend like it. If you need some stories, my wife is right back there in the back. Also ask my teenagers. Also ask anybody who's ever known me. I'm not perfect, nor will I ever claim to be. But the good news is, I will confess every single day that I need Jesus. Because I need Jesus to be honest. I need Jesus to breathe. I need Jesus to do what he's called me to do. Even if sometimes it's just answering the phone when the person on the other line is someone you don't want to talk to. So today you need to choose. You need to choose to actually have a vibrant life in Jesus Christ. It means doing those three things. Admitting, believing, confessing, because those things are life-changing. And some of you, you know it, but you're not living it. Start to live it, because it will change everything and everyone around you. Because the truth is, God has been preparing for these moments long before you were ever born. Psalm 139 talks about how he knit us in the womb. He knew us. But sometimes the stories we tell started long before we could imagine. Because my grandmother's name is Toshiko. It was my grandmother who God saved that day. It was the little old lady who knocked on my dad's door. And we think that God doesn't prepare us for moments like this. He has been working long before you can imagine, long before you were born, to bring you to a place to accept his plan and his purpose for your life. if only you will choose. Because the prophecy of God is already here, that you would know him, that you would love him, that you would accept him. And the choice is now yours. And as the band comes, these altars are not a special place, they are just a place. You can do it in your seat. But some of you need to recognize what God has done for you and start living it out. Some of you need to get your lives right with Jesus. Why? Because if you don't, you're going to continue to struggle and live with some of the issues you live with instead of accepting him and letting him have those. Because the truth about hallelujah here below is hallelujah means to praise the Lord here below as it is in heaven. And you can't do that without a vibrant life in him. And so as they sing this morning, if you need to accept him, come. If you need to commit to live it out, come. The instructions are on your bulletin. If you need to know what to do, and there'll be people who will pray with you. Because the truth is, you're just one step away from praising God here below.